I am a huge fan of connection. Both the type that you have when you're networking and at parties and via LinkedIn, but also the more and more work I've done with Womanship, I realize that we are all a sum of key connections, experiences, relationships from childhood that bring us to where we are now. So my first question is always, what makes you the woman that you are today? So I thought I would share with you today what makes me the woman that I am today. I grew up in the UK. I'm 57 years old, and I grew up at a time when I think people of colour were viewed very differently than they are now. We've still got a long way to go. But we were the only family of colour in quite a middle upper class white area. And a lot of people ask me, was that a difficult upbringing? And of course there were, things that happened along the way. But I had an amazingly happy childhood. And that's very much down to my parents giving myself and my younger brother and sister the tools that we needed to fit in. I think they were determined to show people that we weren't the stereotype that they had in their mind of people of colour. And my dad ran a local youth club, and my mum ran a local nursery when my sister was born. They gave us the messages that I think a lot of children from immigrant backgrounds are given. So always be presentable, always be polite, never use the colour of your skin to hold you back. Education, education, education. Don't try and stand out more than you already do. And they were actually really good tools at the time for fitting in, but they were actually very outwardly facing. Although I had a happy childhood, I remember always feeling slightly on the outside of things, never quite fitting in. It's funny, looking back, I'm never really sure how much of that was in my head and how much of that was actual reality. So, for example, I went to a good school and I was made one of the head girls there, an all-girls school. And I always remember thinking, why have they made the black kid head girl? But looking back, maybe there was more about me then than I even realised. I was the eldest child, did the education thing. My first degree was in management science. I really wanted to get into advertising for some reason after that. And I applied to all the big firms, didn't get in, but ended up working in marketing. And then I decided to do an MBA. After that, applied to all the big firms again, got down to the last one or two sometimes, but never actually got in. And looking back, I would never have got in through their front door recruitment policies of the time. I ended up getting into Saatchi & Saatchi in my late 20s through the back door as a freelancer, and then went on to run big international pieces of business, Visa Europe, Visa Central Europe, Middle East and Africa, Lexus. And it was an amazing time. There was so much money. I mean, I was told I'd missed the Mad Men era, but in comparison to what budgets are now, it was insane. Lots of travel, really exciting. I learned a lot. But also I carried with me, I think, into my whole work life, the fact that I had to prove myself more than anybody else. So I worked really hard. I think I worked harder than a lot of other people did because I always had to prove I was capable, that I could do it. I never asked for help. And it's funny when you look back now, all the research says, those people who ask for help at work actually are perceived better for promotions. But, none of that stuff existed back then. I just had to prove I could do it all. And again, it was all very outwardly facing. During that time, I also got married and divorced to somebody who was quite a bit older than I was, and looking back, quite narcissistic and controlling. I think I had everything that everybody wants aged 30. So I had the big house in an amazing area. I actually didn't have to work, but obviously I was going to work. I think it was looking back when I realised that my mum and dad had had difficulties when I was in my teens. And when I realised that I was as unhappy as my mum was, but in a completely different way, then I realised, hey, I can't watch this repeat itself in terms of unhappiness again. It was a very difficult divorce. So in my mid-30s, I ended up feeling completely hollow inside. I had no idea of who I was. I'd always done everything for everybody else. I was a consummate people pleaser. I wore a mask, an inch thick. It really was. And there was just nothing here. It was before self-help. It was before wellness was a thing. I think I was probably close to burning out. But actually, back in the UK, you couldn't burn out then. I would never have got another job in advertising. And also, I think my parents would have said, what do you mean burning out? Look at everything that everybody's done for you to get here in terms of past generations, and you're sitting in an office and you're burning out. So it wasn't a thing, but this feeling of emptiness was huge. And so I had another job offer, and at that time just saw this advert that you could get a 9-month plane ticket. And I thought, gosh, I just need a break. I asked them to wait 9 months for me, which they did, surprisingly. And I went off on a trip on my own. I remember my mum was like, oh my gosh, my firstborn, she's going off. And I'm like, Mum, I'm 35, 36. You know what I mean? It's like people do this at 18. And so I guess it's that classic find yourself experience. I've never read or watched, is it Eat, Love, Pray? Love, Eat, Pray? Because I have my own experience of that. I went to Bali, Singapore, Australia, Thailand. And when I was in Australia, I met this random German guy and changed my travel plans and decided to do this mad 2-week road trip with him from Cairns to Darwin. At the time, there were no mobile phones. Everything was like internet cafe every couple of days to uplist this long list. And so I went off grid for 2 weeks, and it was hilarious looking at the messages when I got back. Has anybody heard from her? Where is she? But when I set off on this journey with this guy, I had no idea of how life-changing it would be. So we had these beautiful days, and at night we'd stop at these sort of one-shop campsite places. And the experience was a bit like, peeling back an onion. There were lots of tears, but he would ask me questions about myself that I'd never thought about. I told him things that I probably never told anybody else. I went really, really deep. He taught me to start to like myself for the first time ever, to be able to stop looking externally for validation that I had done my whole life. He taught me about love in a different way, conflict in a different way. And it put me in touch with my gut and my empathy and my intuition and actually my connection ability. So he dumped me, by the way, when we got to Darwin after I'd fallen head over heels with him. It was like, what? You've just changed my life and who I am. And, I can never thank this person enough for the change he made in me, because I came back from traveling a completely different person. The week I came back from traveling to the UK, I happened to meet up with a guy who I'd worked with at Saatchi's. We were really close friends. He was my strategist on the accounts that I worked on. We'd done a lot of travel together, and we knew each other really well. And he happened to be in the UK. He'd already moved to Amsterdam. So things went a bit weird between us. We were both single at the same time for the first time. And so very quickly he was saying, why don't you move out to Amsterdam and see whether we can make this work? And I remember thinking, there's no way, I know you too well that this can work, but I guess the sex was good. So I just thought, you know what I mean? Having some fun. And for the first time in my life, it was like living for me. And I guess I had a very alchemist style thought process to it. What was the worst that can happen? I got a job very quickly before I moved out. So I hate the job, I hate him, and I hate Amsterdam. And I moved back to London and a life that I love. And it's something I would never have done before I'd gone traveling. So I moved out to Amsterdam. And I think it's really funny, we look back and we joke because I'm still with the same person 18 years, 19 years later in Amsterdam. And we look back and we're like, neither of us thought this was going to be permanent. But yes, so that's my journey to Amsterdam.